Hey everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations. I'm Simon today, and in this video we're going to be looking at the new moon in Aquarius, and this is for the 11th of February 2021. I hope that you're well and that this energy that you're currently moving through at the moment is finding you, at least in this moment, fairly grounded and not necessarily feeling like things all over the place and that there is a lot of disorganization, which with all of this Aquarius energy, this is the initiation of, ironically, disorganization that leads to organization. It's kind of the key word here that I want to put across with this information today. So, as you know, I support people using evolutionary astrology and human design to experience healing, to find self-empowerment, and ultimately to provide an Aquarius age message, which is that we are transitioning. And this transition that we're in is a very important one to understand in terms of the way that you identify yourself in the world. And we are at the precipice of the initiation of change. This is it. So although Saturn and Jupiter have entered Aquarius, now that we have the sun moving through Aquarius, we've had Mercury in the Aquarius, and now it's in retrograde motion. And then also Venus is now at this new moon conjunct Jupiter. It's already past Saturn. It's already past Pluto and Capricorn. So, this is the time where all of the planets are congregating in the Aquarius energy, and they're going like, all right, let's do this. So this is it. The great conjunction that took place in December was an initiation of outer planetary dynamics, but these personal planets of Mercury and Venus that are coming through, both of them, Mercury ruling the North Node and Venus participating as the ruler of Uranus in the chart, all of this points towards the initiation. So where do you feel that you're being initiated into change? Where do you find yourself standing at the precipice of an entirely new direction that you need to embrace and to almost, in a sense, recognize as the new pathway that we're kind of moving in? All right. So if you have some space and some time and that's available just to yourself, then listen to this video. If not, I really encourage you to take some space, some time away from the distractions of the world and the things that you need to do, and just kind of really sit with your presence while taking this information in, feeling how it resonates in your body somatically. What does the sensations feel like, and what arises for you when you're taking in this message? Okay. All right. So let's jump into the chart, right? Okay. So as you can see, 11th of February, 2021, and we have this happening in Sweden at 5 minutes past 8 in the evening. Okay. And yeah, as you can see, there's the entire gang hanging out over there, having a big party. You know what the interesting thing about Aquarius is? It correlates to elitism. Okay. It correlates to elitism. It also correlates to the elite group or elite associations or elitist companies or organizations, right? And so just in a funny kind of way, the moon, the sun, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn are all kind of chilling out in Aquarius, and good old Uranus and Mars and Chiron and Neptune are all kind of like, when can we get into the party? And you're like, you're not good enough for us. And you need the special code. And so they're like, whoa, what is that special code? It's individuation, right? Be yourself. Ironically, the shadow of Aquarius is that be yourself just like everybody else, right? A group of people that all are differentiated from everybody else but wear the same clothes, right? This is a kind of joke with Aquarius over there. You can be part of a group, you can be all special and different, but ultimately there's a code of conduct that exists within that everybody conforms to. And so the essence of true individuation doesn't actually manifest in that. So yeah, you're going to see that manifest, and you're going to see that come into play as, of course, Jupiter and Saturn actually begin to move apart from each other, begin to go into different signs. And about 3 or 4 years from now, you'll start to see groups form where it is a honoring of individuality, but ironically, in the context of that individuality, there's still a certain way of existing, or a code of conduct that needs to be followed in order to be part of the club, as it were. And again, it's one of those things where it's a paradox, because essentially Saturn still needs to exist within Aquarius, right? You still need to have complete some form of regulation in order to prevent chaos from existing, or anarchy, but yet within the context of something that has separated itself to identify itself as differently to the consensus, it takes on an Aquarian tone. Okay, so I hope that was kind of something that you could follow in that process. So yeah, we have this this group, this party that the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn got invited to, and there's a secret message that they're kind of having a conversation with, and ultimately the focus there is, what does individuation look like, right? And it's a very interesting topic. I mean, there's different ways that you can interpret and understand individuation. When I talk about individuation, what I'm simply reflecting here is the natural ability to separate your sense of reality, or your experience of reality, from a consensus idea or a shared idea, and to ultimately, bring your own point of view to the play, which is a very interesting thing, because, as you know, the Gemini Sagittarius axis is all about the way that we identify with a certain philosophical structure, a ideology, a perspective, a point of view. So if we're in a time that we are in right now, where a lot of the changes have led to people feeling very disorientated in themselves, because their sense of self is become outdated, then the natural next step is to align with certain ideals or ideologies or truths or perspectives that give a sense of self. And so that image of the sense of self becomes personified. In other words, if I said to you that, astrology is not real, and you kind of deeply attach to the idea that astrology is your sense of self, the ego or the persona will actually feel threatened, right? Because it interprets the observation as a personal thing. So we do live in a time right now with, Aquarius, or should I say Gemini and Sagittarius as the nodes, and Neptune that's sitting there squaring it, as you've heard me talk about lots, that this energy over here, this reflection, these patterns are showing where there is a sort of separation between the structures of the past, or ideologies of the past, and the way that we are shifting to a new narrative, right? Gemini is the new narrative. So the question you want to ask yourself is, what is the new narrative that's arriving for you? What's the new narrative that is developing inside of yourself? How are you shifting your language to be more in alignment or in resonance with your inner truth, your inner experience? So do you see what I'm trying to do here with weaving in this here, that the secret held in this little party of people that are behind closed doors in their private organization, saying, individuation, right? How do we decondition, break free, follow my own beat, as it were, and that's separate from somebody else? And so if that's the core message, then the nodes over here are the facilitators of that. So Neptune facilitates the loss of meaning, or the absence of purpose, or why would this be happening, ideologies or perspectives. And the North Node here, as it relates to Neptune, is, where are you following the little red thread of your own individuation journey path that is unique to your own, and that as you follow that and you see what you see on your path, you ultimately have something to share that's, specific to you. So another great way to specify this, to make it more clear, is that the reason why somebody writes an autobiography or some form of a book that's about self-expression of their life, that would be to a certain degree an individuation process, because it's reflecting the individual journey of that person, the inner experience. And that is ultimately what's occurring here for us, is that this energy is pointing towards the separation from a collective idea to an individual idea, right? You heard me talk about that in the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction video, which, by the way, if you haven't watched that, I'd highly encourage you to actually go back to that video and go and watch that, or go to that video, or see it's in, I'll put it in the description for you, Jupiter-Saturn conjunction video, because I talk about a lot of the things that at that point were being seeded into the collective unconscious, right? Seeded into our collective shared experience of this world, right? That underlying pattern. And this energy here is the initiator, it's the igniter. So if you notice, you'll see Mars is in Taurus at the moment, and it squares the Saturn, it squares the Jupiter, right? It squares the Venus, it squares the Mars. You can see it all here. Like Mars is squaring everything there, right? So this is the igniter, this is the initiator. So that's why going back to that video will be really helpful. Okay. So does everybody get the point here, what I'm talking about here, right? The individuation process. What is your autobiography, right? If you had to write a book about your story and your experience and that reflection process, that would be a really great exercise. Of course, not writing the book itself, because that would take forever in a day. But just kind of sitting and just taking 10 minutes of your time, and or maybe before you go to bed, for instance, or, you know, whenever you've got space to kind of just really self-connect, to just check in with, you know, just reflect back on yourself. And that's what Aquarius is. It's an energy that is about detachment. So one of the things that is sometimes supportive is that, like, you have a friend, for instance, that gives you an objective perspective on a scenario that you might not necessarily fully be able to see because you're involved in it. That would be an Aquarius thing, right? You're stepping back, you're not involved in it, and so you see it from a different point of view. So that's another way to interpret this energy, is the capacity to see yourself from a different point of view, right? From a detached point of view. You can see the story of your life. You can see the experience of your life. So a little tip, or a little kind of way that you can actually go about and do that is, like I said, just take 10 minutes of your day or of your time and just kind of see your journey as if it was in a story or a character in a film, for instance. And how would you play out? And, you know, think to the types of relationships that you've had, and or think about the origins of your growing up phase, right? And just kind of see what really conditioned you, what really influenced you, what really shaped you, and how that's led you to this point. And then try something super cool out, right? I don't know if any of you guys have watched this film called Tenet. If you haven't, I highly encourage you to go check that out. It's called Tenet. And spoiler alert, by the way. So if you haven't watched the film, I am going to encourage you to fast forward a few bits. All right. So spoiler alert, I'm going to give a small section of the film away right now. Okay. So try to see yourself not as moving forward in the sense that looking forward to your future, but think of yourself in the future looking back at the current self and feel what that feels like, right? Imagine that you look at everything that you're doing right now as something that is leading to a point in the future that will then be present. So an example would be like when I created this, when I sat down to record this, the way I see myself is I'm looking at myself moving towards the end of this video already uploaded. Does that make sense? And it's a really weird kind of paradigm Aquarius perspective, where it just kind of shifts and kind of see things from a different point of view. So do the same that with your life, like look back at your life, but not in the sense of looking back at it, but looking at it from the point of view of everything that led you to this point. Yeah. Okay. So that's a kind of little Aquarius fun thing that you can do there. Now, for us individually and purposely, obviously this stellium lands somewhere in your chart. So what you want to do is take out your astrology charts, look at the stellium over here, and ask yourself, what house is it landing in? And how is that related to a karmic pattern that is unfolding for me right now? How is this related to a karmic pattern that is unfolding for me right now that was already set in stone, that was already set in motion? And now I've arrived to this point in my journey to process this. Okay. So for me, all of the stuff lands on the cusp. I mean, it literally is in my first house. Like everything is my first house. So do you remember I did a video called Redefining Mercury Retrograde? Okay. So for the last year, I've been trying to find a recording software that allows me to have a camera of myself like somewhere over here, and allows me to use the drawing facility, but can also post the chart, right? And 4 days ago, I came across the thing I was looking for that ultimately encompassed everything that I wanted. Now, Zoom does that, but it doesn't do it in the way that I need it. Okay. All right. So I found this and I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. So there's this new technology, this new software that's been around for a long time, that has now finally been able to fix something that I really wanted. So going forward for me, doing these videos or creating content, etc., I've got the software that meets all of the things. So it's a new direction for me. Okay, that's one thing. Another direction shift for me is like working on establishing a new way of setting boundaries, right? Because boundary making is really important for my soul. It carries a lot of wounding around those things. Neptune opposed the moon. So all of the stuff landing in my first house is speaking to bringing myself to the table, right? Saying what is important for me or not. So that would be an example of how I would see this energy as this is where I've arrived at my life, and here's what it means for me. And the reason why I know what it means for me is because I've connected it to the resonance of my emotional journey. That's why I say, in order to have astrology work for you, you really need to know the journey that you're on and to see those points, so that when you stand here, you don't look at it as, oh, what's the journey going there? You go backwards to see what that experience over there means or whatever, right? But you also see that where you're standing right now and what transits you're dealing with, okay, are just like I explained, right? You're looking back and seeing that this moment over here is now presenting what was already set in stone from the birth chart. In other words, the birth chart is the origin. You're now having everything is landing in your fourth house. And so at this point in time, you're processing the emotional story, and you'll probably find that this journey that's here has got something to do with this fourth house transit that you're working through. It's all interconnected. Okay. All right. So I hope that makes sense. Right. So let's have a look. Okay. We've got all the trines taking place there. As you can see, it's a really fascinating chart. There's the trines to the North Node. So that's the shift in the narrative. It's the shift in the perspective. It's the shift in the point of view. And the point of view, as you see, is not going forward, but looking back. Yeah. And then by looking back, you're objectifying your experience outside of it. You're seeing the emotional dynamic. And these squares that are taking place here are, in a sense, reflecting a shift, a necessary change, or when you take two tectonic plates and you push them together like that, eventually at some point the tension is going to move, and it's going to cause a change in behavior, a change in action, a change in perspective. So this is about a change in perspective. Do you see it? So all you need to do now is go with your chart. So where's this landing, and how is this new moon for you changing your perspective? Okay, cool. So with changing your perspective, I'd like to let you know that just honoring the Aquarius energy, I don't know if any of you guys noticed, but the BBC, which is the British broadcasting company or something like that, they had posted, I must remember, right? They had posted on their website how astrology is becoming more popular. The consensus reality news thing that would undermine astrology and the validation of it have now created a post, article, everything of the sort, referencing or talking about a Canadian astrologer and how astrology is becoming more popular, and they're promoting it. And I was like, that's so cool, because that's Aquarius. Aquarius energy is astrology. It's detached. It's the observation correlation dynamic. So what a great way to start seeing this kind of emerging into the world right now. A shift in perspective, right? Cool. So to honor that process, for any of you that are interested in learning astrology, if you want to study it, any of that, and if you would like to try a different approach to understanding astrology, which is to be able to feel the astrology, then myself and Jen, we have a promotion discount on our astrology school and the astrology immersion. So the astrology school is to teach you astrology. Yes, you can be certified. Yes, it's a full education in EA. And the astrology immersion is a 12-week course that you take. It's all pre-recorded for you. And I take you through the archetype from thinking of Aries to feeling Aries, and you have exercises to do. So if that's something that's really interesting to you, I'll post the links in the description, and the discount code for that is called Aqua for Aquarius, just in case that wasn't clear. All right, peeps, have an amazing day. Take care. Bye-bye.